My daughter-in-law called at 3:45 a.m. Your son is dead. I already had him cremated. He left everything to me. You get nothing. I said nothing. The silence on the line was heavy, but something was terribly wrong. My son hated fire. He had told me 100 times that if anything ever happened to him, he wanted to be buried next to his mother. Not burned. Never burned. So I didn't fly to Hawaii for a funeral. I flew there to investigate. What I discovered in the next 7 days destroyed her perfect plan. Hello everyone, and thank you for being here. Before we begin, I'd love to know where you are watching this from. Leave a comment with your city or country. It helps me understand who is listening to the stories on this channel. One more thing. While some details have been dramatized for entertainment and educational value, the core lesson about family, faith, and following your gut is absolutely true. The call came in the dead of night, and I knew before I answered that my life was about to change forever. I'd been a cop for 35 years in Seattle. You develop instincts, a sixth sense that never really turns off. The middle of the night phone call is never good news. I fumbled for my reading glasses, squinting at the glowing screen. Vanessa, my daughter-in-law, calling from Hawaii. My heart already knew. Daniel. Her voice came through shaky, but something about the tremor felt rehearsed, like a bad actress reading lines. I have terrible news. It's Daniel. He drowned yesterday during our sunset cruise in Maui. The words hit like a physical blow to the chest. My son, my only child. What happened? I managed to choke out. Yesterday evening we were on a boat and he slipped overboard, she said. The current was so strong, the Coast Guard searched, but... She paused for effect. I'm so sorry. The funeral is already arranged. Cremation, just like he always wanted. That's when the first alarm bell went off in my head, louder than any siren I'd heard on patrol. Daniel never wanted to be cremated. We had talked about it extensively after his mother passed away. He wanted to be buried next to her someday, under the big oak at Evergreen Cemetery. Vanessa, I don't think... Oh, and Arthur? She cut me off, her voice shifting to something much colder, stripped of the fake grief. About Daniel's estate and the life insurance policy. It all comes to me. $3 million plus the house. Everything. You should know that before you fly out here. The lawyers were very clear. You get nothing. Then she hung up. I sat there in the dark, staring at my phone. The clock glowed green. 3:47 a.m. 2 minutes to shatter my world. Or at least that's what she wanted me to believe. Something was very, very wrong. Daniel was a championship swimmer in high school. He made state finals his junior year. Even at 40, he swam laps 3 times a week at the local athletic club. The idea of him drowning on a calm tourist cruise was absurd. And that comment about the money, who says that to a grieving father moments after delivering news of death? Not, I'm sorry for your loss, not, he went peacefully, but you get nothing. It was essentially a threat. I opened my messages. There it was, Daniel's last text sent yesterday at 4:17 p.m. I hadn't seen it because I'd been at a friend's retirement dinner, my phone on silent. Dad, I need to talk. It's about Vanessa. Something's not right. Can we meet this weekend? My hands started shaking. I thought back 3 years to when Daniel introduced us to Vanessa at Sunday brunch. She was beautiful, charming, and said all the right things, but I had felt something off. Maybe it was the way her smile never quite reached her eyes, or how she kept steering the conversation back to Daniel's job, his salary, and his prospects at Microsoft. My wife, Eleanor, would have picked up on it immediately. She had incredible instincts about people, but Eleanor had been gone 10 years by then, and I'd learned to let Daniel make his own choices. Even when those choices included marrying a woman who made my cop instincts buzz like a nest of angry hornets. I should have said something. Should have pulled him aside, shared my concerns, but I kept quiet, told myself I was being overprotective. Now, my son was supposedly dead, and his wife's first priority was making sure I knew I wasn't getting a dime. I stood at my bedroom window. Outside, Queen Anne was still dark, the streetlights casting long shadows. Somewhere out there, the truth was waiting. I didn't book a flight to Hawaii just yet. Instead, I did what I had done for 3.5 decades. I started asking questions. The first question was simple. If Daniel drowned yesterday evening, why was Vanessa so eager to tell me about the money before telling me strictly how he died? I sat there in the dark, my instincts screaming. This wasn't grief in her voice. This was a performance, and I was going to find out why. Sleep was impossible after Vanessa's call. I sat at my kitchen table with black coffee as the sky lightened to a bruised purple. At exactly 6 a.m., I called Marcus Vance. Marcus and I went back 20 years on the Seattle force. He'd made detective the same year I did. "Arthur, it's 6 in the morning. You'd better be calling because you won the lottery. I need a favor, a big one." His tone shifted instantly. "What's wrong?" "My son, Daniel. His wife says he drowned in Maui yesterday, but something's not right." I told him everything. The call, Vanessa's coldness about the money, the cremation Daniel never wanted, and the text message I'd missed. "Read me that text again." I pulled up my phone. It says, "Dad, I need to talk. It's about Vanessa. Something's not right. Can we meet this weekend?" "Arthur, I'm sorry, but you're thinking what I'm thinking, aren't you?" "Yeah, I need you to run her," I said. "Everything. Full name, Vanessa Cole. Maiden name possibly Lawson now. I'll call you back in an hour." It took 45 minutes. "Arthur, sit down if you're not already." I stopped pacing my living room. "What did you find?" "Your daughter-in-law has been busy. 6 months ago, she took out a $3 million life insurance policy on Daniel. Guess who the sole beneficiary is?" "Vanessa." "That's a massive policy for a healthy 40-year-old. My stomach tightened. "What else?" "This is where it gets strange. Vanessa was married before, a man named Robert Sterling. He died 2 years ago." The room tilted slightly. "How?" "Drowning accident. Bahamas vacation, snorkeling. Body never recovered, ruled accidental. Insurance payout was $1.5 million. I sat down hard on the sofa. "2 husbands," Marcus said quietly. "2 drownings. 2 payouts. That's a pattern." "She killed them," I said, my voice trembling with rage. "Robert Sterling and now Daniel, if she hasn't already." "We don't know that yet, but if your son is dead, this goes to the authorities. If he's not, then I need to find him fast. What do you need?" "Everything on Robert Sterling, full case file, and everything on Vanessa, work, money, associates. I'll have it by noon. Arthur, be careful. She's done this before and thinks you're on to her." "I know." After I hung up, I stared at Daniel's text. It's about Vanessa. Something's not right. He'd known. He had sensed the danger, and I hadn't been there to listen. Guilt hit me hard. 3 years ago, when I first met Vanessa, I'd felt that cold warning in my spine. I ignored it, told myself I was being paranoid. Now Daniel might be dead because I stayed silent. Marcus called again at 11:30. "I've got the Sterling file, and there's more. Vanessa has been making regular trips to Maui for 6 months, always alone." "Planning," I said. "That's how it looks. I'm sending everything now, but you should involve the authorities." "I will, after I know what happened to my son." I opened my laptop. Marcus's email was already there. I clicked the Robert Sterling file first. The pattern was undeniable. Same method, same motive, same cold calculation. That afternoon at the precinct, Marcus handed me a physical folder. No doubt anymore. Vanessa's first husband, Robert Sterling, died the same way. Drowning, Bahamas. By noon, I was on a plane to Maui. The 5-hour flight gave me time to think, and the more I thought, the more convinced I became that my son was still alive. The pattern was too perfect. Robert Sterling in the Bahamas, Daniel now in Maui. 2 drownings, 2 convenient accidents, no bodies. Vanessa had done this before and walked away clean, but this time she had me. I landed in Maui just after 7 p.m. The airport buzzed with tourists in bright floral shirts, laughing and snapping photos. I pushed past them, a ghost in their paradise, rented a car, and drove straight to the resort where Daniel and Vanessa had stayed. The Ocean Breeze Resort was postcard perfect, swaying palm trees, infinity pools, and endless ocean views. Except my son had supposedly drowned here 2 days earlier. I found the manager in the lobby. His nameplate read Simon Fields. "I'm Arthur Morgan, Daniel Morgan's father."
His face shifted into practiced sympathy. "I'm so sorry for your loss, sir. Your daughter-in-law has been absolutely devastated." "I want to see her." "She's in room 412. I can call up." "Don't," I said sharply. "I'll surprise her." Something flickered in his eyes, but he nodded. In the elevator, my heart hammered against my ribs. I hadn't seen Vanessa since the wedding. That day, she'd worn white and smiled like an angel. Now I knew better. I knocked on room 412. Vanessa opened the door wearing black yoga pants and a tank top. Her hair was pulled back, mascara smeared beneath her eyes. "Arthur," she said, visibly startled, "I didn't expect you so soon. The cremation is already done. There's really no reason. I want to know what happened. Everything." She stepped aside. The room was chaotic, suitcases open, clothes everywhere. She was packing. "It was the sunset cruise," she said softly. "Daniel was taking pictures near the rail. A wave hit the boat and he slipped. He went overboard." She gestured towards the dark ocean outside the balcony. "The current was strong. By the time they turned back, he was gone." I watched her hands shake. The tears gathered in her eyes. Convincing. Too convincing. "Where's his body?"
"The Coast Guard searched for 2 days. They said with these currents..." She shook her head. "So, no body, no death certificate." Something flashed in her eyes, a spark of irritation. "Not yet, but they said one can be issued later." A lie, and she knew it. "I'm going to the police," I said. "They already know everything." I left. At the Maui Police Department, I was directed to Officer James Miller, the Coast Guard liaison. He shook my hand. "I'm sorry about your son. I was on the search." "Is there a death certificate?" "No, sir. Without remains, it's a missing person case. Under Hawaii law, it takes 7 years to declare death in absentia." 7 years? That meant Vanessa couldn't touch the insurance money, not unless she produced a body. Outside, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Stop looking. He's gone." A friend? No. Someone was watching me, which meant I was right. I looked up at the dark Hawaiian sky, the stars looking colder than they ever did in Seattle. Daniel was out there somewhere, and whoever sent that message knew where. I wasn't stopping. I was just getting started. Every instinct I had as a detective told me this wasn't over. Too many lies, rehearsed answers, and fear behind her eyes. Whatever Vanessa planned depended on silence, distance, and time. I would give her none. The next morning, after receiving the threatening text, I knew I needed help. I'd been threatened before, an occupational hazard after 35 years in law enforcement, but threatening me over my son was a fatal mistake. I needed someone who knew Maui, someone who could dig where I couldn't, someone who understood how the islands worked. Julian Stone's office sat above a surf shop on Front Street in Lahaina. The sign read, "Stone Investigations, Discreet Professional Results." Julian looked exactly like a former FBI agent turned private investigator. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, alert posture. He studied me the second I walked in. "Arthur Morgan," he said, "retired Seattle PD. What brings you to my island?" "My son Daniel. His wife claims he drowned 4 days ago. I believe she's lying." I told him everything. Daniel's warning text, Vanessa's past with Robert Sterling, the Bahamas drowning, the insurance policy, and the threat sent to my phone. Julian leaned back, fingers steepled. "That's a clean pattern. What do you want from me?" "Everything. Vanessa's associates, finances, movements. If Daniel is alive, someone here knows where he is. Give me 24 hours. I don't have..." "You do," he said calmly. "If I rush, I miss things. You know that." He called the next morning. "Come now." I reached his office in 15 minutes. His laptop showed multiple windows. "Vanessa has been involved with a man named Derek Hall, a water sports instructor at your resort." A photo appeared. Late 30s, fit, sun-darkened skin. Derek continued, "They've been discreet, but not enough." He played security footage from the resort's parking lot. Vanessa and Derek stood beside a white pickup, kissing intimately. The timestamp showed 2 days before Daniel supposedly drowned. "There's more," Julian said. "Derek owns a boat, uses it for snorkeling and fishing charters, but he also makes trips to the outer islands." He pulled up booking records. On Sunday, the day Daniel vanished, Derek canceled all bookings, claimed he was sick, but his boat left the harbor at 6 a.m. and returned after dark. My pulse spiked. Where did he go? Julian opened a satellite map. He usually stays near tourist waters, but 6 months ago he began going here. He zoomed in, a private island 15 miles offshore, owned by a shell company. Another image appeared. Docked at a small pier was a familiar vessel, same make, same model. "This image is from yesterday morning," Julian said. "That boat's been there 4 days since Daniel disappeared." My chest tightened. "He's there." Julian nodded. "I believe so, but we can't rush in. If they see us coming, they'll kill him." "Exactly. We need eyes first." I stared at the island on the screen. Somewhere on that speck of land, surrounded by endless blue, my son was alive. "When do we move?" I asked. "Tonight. My boat. After midnight. Recon only. By dawn, we'll know, and then we call everyone. But first, certainty." I stood. "Tonight." Julian enlarged the image once more. "Arthur," he said quietly, "I think your son is still alive." I trusted my instincts completely. Now every step fit the pattern I'd chased my entire career. Vanessa needed time, distance, and secrecy. I would take all 3 away from her. The island, the boat, the lies, none of it was coincidence. Whatever waited offshore, I would face it. I wasn't leaving Maui without my son, no matter what it cost or how dangerous the truth became. That night, around midnight, Julian and I stood on a dock in Lahaina, staring at a rented boat bobbing in the dark water. At 70 years old, I thought my days of stakeouts and dangerous operations were over. I was wrong. We loaded the boat with binoculars, a camera with a telephoto lens, and flashlights we hoped not to use. Julian checked his phone one last time, satellite coordinates glowing on the screen. 15 miles due east, he said quietly. About 45 minutes if we keep the engine low. Once we're close, we cut power and paddle in. "You've done this before," I said. "More times than I can count. You ready?" I thought of Daniel tied up somewhere on that island, scared, maybe hurt. "Let's go." The ocean was calm beneath a quarter moon, providing just enough light to see without being seen. We moved slowly, the shoreline lights fading behind us until we were surrounded by nothing but the vast, breathing ocean. I checked my watch again and again. 12:15, 12:30, 12:45. At 12:50, Julian cut the engine. "There," he whispered. A dark shape rose from the water. As we drifted closer, details appeared. A small dock, a single wooden cabin set back from the shore, one window glowing with yellow light. We paddled the last 100 yards, oars dipping silently into the black water. My heart pounded so hard I was sure it could be heard across the waves. We tied off at the far end of the dock, away from Derek's boat. Julian scanned the cabin through binoculars. One window facing us. Lights on, no obvious cameras. Move slow, stay low. We crept along the dock and crossed the rocky beach to the cabin's side. Voices drifted out. A man on the phone. Derek. Julian signaled toward the window. I crouched and raised my head just enough to see inside. Daniel lay on a narrow bed against the wall, thin, pale, unshaven. His hands were tied to the frame with thick rope. He wasn't moving, but his chest rose and fell. Alive. My eyes burned with sudden tears. I forced myself to stay still. Derek paced near the door, phone pressed to his ear. "Another week. That's enough time. Keep him sedated. When it's done, we make it look like he drowned trying to escape. Dump the body offshore and let the current do the rest. Same story as before." My fists clenched so hard my knuckles cracked. I wanted to rush the door. Julian's hand crushed my shoulder, holding me in place. He shook his head. "Wait." Derek ended the call. Then the door opened. Vanessa stepped outside. She wore jeans and a dark sweater, relaxed, smiling, nothing like the grieving widow I'd seen earlier. She kissed Derek. "One more week.
Then we're free. $3 million free. Derek asked, "You sure the old man bought it?" "He bought it," she laughed, a sound that chilled my blood. "He is probably back in Seattle. There's nothing he can do." I almost stood up then. Julian held me down with iron strength. Vanessa glanced toward the water. For a second, her gaze swept past us in the shadows. I froze. "Did you hear something?" she asked. "Just waves," Derek said. "Come on." They went inside, the door shut. Julian pulled me back. We retreated to the dock, untied the boat, and drifted until we were clear enough to start the engine. Neither of us spoke until the island faded behind us. "I saw him," I said, my voice thick. "He's alive." "Yes," Julian said grimly, "but if we rush this, they'll kill him." "So what do we do?" "We bring in the police, Coast Guard, everyone. We show them what we saw and let them take him safely." As Maui's lights reappeared, my hands shook with rage. I'd seen my son alive. I would not rest until Vanessa and Derek faced justice, and my son walked free. Later that morning, around 9 a.m., Julian and I walked into the Maui Police Department. I'd spent 35 years working with cops. Now I needed them to trust me one more time to save my son's life. We barely slept after the recon. We couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Daniel tied to that bed, pale and thin, heard Derek calmly planning his murder. We maybe had a week before they killed him, maybe less. Captain Thomas Reed met us in his office. He was in his mid-50s, gray hair cut military short, the kind of man who'd seen everything and believed nothing without proof. "Mr. Morgan," he said, shaking my hand, "I understand you have information regarding your son." "Captain, my son is alive. He's being held on a private island 15 miles offshore. His wife and her accomplice plan to kill him within the week." Reed's expression stayed neutral. "That's a serious claim. Kidnapping, conspiracy, insurance fraud. If you're wrong—" "I'm not. I saw him last night. Julian and I went to that island." "You conducted your own reconnaissance?" frowned Reed. "Necessary," I said. "And we brought proof." Julian opened his laptop. 5 minutes, Captain." We showed him everything. Photos taken through the cabin window, Daniel tied to the bed, unmistakably alive, an audio recording of Derek's phone call. 1 more week, make it look like he drowned trying to escape. Then the history. Robert Sterling, Vanessa's first husband, drowned in the Bahamas. Next, Daniel's policy, $3 million taken out 6 months ago. Finally, the resort's security footage, Vanessa and Derek kissing 2 days before Daniel supposedly drowned. Reed reviewed it all, making 2 quiet phone calls, cross-checking on his computer. At last, he stood.
"This is substantial," he said. "The pattern alone is damning." He straightened his uniform. "We move, but it's by the book. Water police, SWAT, Coast Guard. We do this right." "How long?" I asked. 2 hours. Briefings, coordination, hostage rescue planning. 2 hours felt like an eternity, but I understood. You don't rush an operation like this. "I want to be there," I said. "You're a civilian now, Morgan," Reed replied. "Command boat only, no exceptions." I hated it, but he was right. At 10:45, we boarded 3 vessels. 2 Maui PD water police boats and a Coast Guard cutter. 12 officers total, plus Julian and me. SWAT and tactical gear, weapons ready. Reed gave the final briefing. Hostage situation on a private island. 2 suspects armed and dangerous. 1 hostage, condition unknown. Primary objective, hostage safety. "Yes, sir," the teams answered. Engines roared to life. I stood on the command boat deck, watching Maui shrink behind us. Somewhere ahead, Daniel was waiting. We were coming. The crossing took 30 minutes. I scanned the horizon with binoculars. Then I saw it. Black smoke, thick and oily, rising against the blue sky. "Captain!" I shouted. Reed grabbed his radio. "All units, heavy smoke at target location. This is now a rescue operation. Full speed." The boat surged forward. My heart pounded against my ribs. The cabin was burning. Daniel was inside. We were out of time. Before I tell you what happened next, I need to know, do you think I got there in time? Will my son survive? Drop your prediction in the comments right now. Minutes later, as we closed in on the island, flames burst through the cabin roof. Fire licked into the sky, thick smoke rolling upward. Officers shouted commands over the engines, but all I could think was that my son was inside that inferno.
The boat slammed into the shore. Police poured out, weapons raised, voices sharp and controlled. Maui PD, hands up, nobody move. Vanessa and Derek were already running toward the dock, aiming for Derek's boat. They froze when they saw 3 police vessels and armed officers surrounding them. There was nowhere left to run. I didn't wait. Every instinct drilled into me over 35 years screamed to hold position, to let SWAT handle it, to follow protocol. I ignored every one of them. I ran straight for the burning cabin. "Arthur, no!" Julian shouted behind me, but I didn't slow down. The heat hit me 10 feet from the door, a wall of scorching air that burned my eyes and singed the hair on my arms. Smoke poured out, thick and choking. I yanked my shirt over my mouth and lunged inside. It was hell. I couldn't see. I could barely breathe. The roar of the fire was deafening, crackling along the dry wood walls like a living beast devouring its prey. The ceiling groaned, ready to collapse. "Daniel!" I shouted, but my voice vanished into the roar. I dropped low, crawling where the air was thinner. My hands hit the metal bed frame, then rope, then skin. "Daniel!" He lay unconscious, still tied to the bed, his face pale in the terrifying orange glow of the firelight. I clawed at the ropes, but my hands shook too badly. Smoke, heat, panic. I couldn't make my fingers work. Then Julian appeared through the haze, a knife flashing in his hand. 3 fast cuts and the ropes fell away. "Go," he yelled. "I've got his legs." I grabbed Daniel under the arms. He was limp, a heavy, lifeless weight. Together we staggered toward the door, coughing violently. Smoke was so thick I couldn't tell where the exit was. Then fresh air hit my face. We burst out and collapsed on the sand. Paramedics rushed in. I rolled aside as they worked. "No pulse," someone shouted. "Start compressions." "No, no, no," I whispered. They started CPR, compressions, breaths, again and again. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. We were so close. Then Daniel coughed. A violent, racking cough ripped through him. His eyes flew open, terrified, wide with shock. "Dad?" he whispered. I was beside him instantly. "I'm here. You're safe." His hand found mine and squeezed weakly. I broke down, tears streaming down my soot-stained face. Behind us, Vanessa screamed. Officers dragged her toward a boat, cuffs biting into her wrists. She fought, yelling incoherently. Derek tried to flee, diving into the water, but the Coast Guard intercepted him and hauled him out like a netted fish. Both caught. Finished. Paramedics loaded Daniel onto a stretcher. Smoke inhalation, possible internal injuries. We're calling a helicopter. "I'm going with him," I said. They nodded. While we waited, I walked to where Vanessa sat guarded. She saw me and exploded. "He wanted this," she screamed. "He wanted to disappear."
I stopped in front of her. Captain Reed stood nearby. I looked at the woman who'd married my son, tied him up, and left him to burn. "My son is alive," I said quietly, "and you're finished." Her face drained of color. She had nothing left to say. The helicopter arrived, rotors churning the smoke into spirals. They loaded Daniel in. I climbed after him, never releasing his hand. As we lifted off, I looked down. The cabin collapsed inward, smoke rising into the perfect blue sky. Police surrounded Vanessa and Derek on the beach. It was over. Daniel squeezed my hand again. "Dad," he whispered, "you found me." "Always," I said. "I'll always find you." 3 days later, on a quiet Sunday morning, Daniel was finally strong enough to talk. I sat beside his hospital bed at Maui Memorial, holding his hand while Captain Reed pulled up a chair with his recording device. My son had lost 15 pounds in 7 days. His cheekbones were sharp, his skin pale against the white sheets, but his eyes were clear, alert, and ready to tell the truth. Reed pressed record. "Mr. Morgan, in your own words, please describe what happened." Daniel's voice was hoarse but steady. 2 months ago, I found text messages on Vanessa's phone. She was having an affair with Derek Hall, a water sports instructor at the resort where we'd been staying. When I confronted her, she denied everything, told me I was paranoid. He paused, swallowing hard. I was going to file for divorce. I'd already contacted a lawyer in Seattle. And the life insurance policy? Reed asked. That was her idea 6 months ago. Daniel's jaw tightened. She said we needed it for our future. $3 million. She insisted I name her as the sole beneficiary. I thought she was thinking about us, about security. I felt my chest tighten. The pieces were always there. We just didn't see them until it was too late. Walk me through last Sunday, Reed said gently. Daniel closed his eyes, remembering. Derek invited me out fishing, said we should bond man to man. Vanessa encouraged it. She even packed us lunch. His voice cracked. On the boat, Derek handed me a beer. I remember the taste was off, bitter. And then nothing. You were drugged? Yeah. When I woke up, I was on that island, tied to a bed. They were both there, Vanessa and Derek. They weren't hiding anymore. Daniel's hands trembled. Vanessa looked at me like I was already dead. She told me they'd been planning this for months. They were going to keep me sedated for a week, then stage my drowning, make it look like an accident. Reed leaned forward. What happened during that week? They kept me there, gave me sedatives twice a day to keep me weak. Vanessa would come in and talk to me, tell me how much money she'd get, how she and Derek were going to disappear to Costa Rica with the payout. His voice hardened. She said no one would ever find me, that the ocean would take care of the evidence. And the morning of the rescue? Reed asked. I heard helicopters, sirens. Derek panicked. He started shouting that they had to get rid of me, but there wasn't time. Daniel's eyes met mine. That's when he set the fire. He was going to let me burn. Reed made a note. Mr. Morgan, based on your testimony and the evidence we've collected, Vanessa Cole has been charged with first-degree kidnapping, attempted murder, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, and first-degree arson. Derek Hall faces identical charges, plus aggravated assault for administering the sedatives without consent. Daniel exhaled slowly. Then he looked at me. You saved my life, Dad. I squeezed his hand. I knew something was wrong. I just trusted my gut. You always told me to do that. Trust your instincts. Reed stood, switching off the recorder. We'll need you back in Seattle for the trial, but for now, rest. You've been through hell. After Reed left, Daniel looked out the window at the Maui coastline, the place that had almost killed him. I want to go home, Dad, back to Seattle. I need to start over, and I need to be close to family. I nodded, my throat tight. Then let's go home. 3 months later, on a warm June evening, Daniel and I sat on the back porch of my house in Queen Anne, watching the sun sink into Puget Sound. He'd moved into my guest room temporarily after Maui, but neither of us was rushing that arrangement. The truth was simple. We both needed the quiet, the routine, and each other. We'd settled into an easy rhythm. Most nights, we cooked dinner together. Nothing fancy, just grilled salmon and vegetables, the kind of simple meals Eleanor used to make. On Saturdays, we walked to Pike Place Market, bought fresh coffee, and watched the fishmongers toss salmon across the ice. Seattle felt like home again for both of us. Daniel went to therapy twice a week, working through what he called the island. He didn't say much about it, and I didn't push, but I noticed the changes. His hands no longer shook when he held a mug. His smiles came more easily. He slept through the night without jolting awake, drenched in sweat. He'd found a new job, too, doing software engineering for a Portland company, fully remote. He worked from my kitchen table or the porch, laptop open, the sound stretching out in front of him. He was rebuilding, piece by piece, slowly but surely. Late at night, sometimes I thought about Eleanor. 10 years gone, yet her voice still felt close. I remembered the hospital room, the soft beeping of machines, her hand warm in mine. She looked at me and said, "Arthur, promise me something. Take care of our son, no matter what, even when he thinks he doesn't need you." "Always," I said. "I'll always find you." And trust your instincts, she whispered. You always know what's right. I'd kept that promise, even when it seemed reckless, flying to Maui on a hunch, hiring the PI, pushing police to raid an island based on a father's gut. I trusted my instincts, and I brought my son home alive. The trial lasted 2 months. Daniel testified, reliving everything in front of strangers. But the evidence was overwhelming. Recordings, photos, insurance documents, and the file on Robert Sterling. Vanessa's plan unfolded in brutal clarity. She was sentenced to 25 years for attempted murder, kidnapping, conspiracy, and arson. The judge called her a danger to society and denied parole. Derek received 15 years. He cooperated, testified against her, and the prosecutor labeled him a follower. Still, he'd helped drug my son, imprison him, and try to burn him alive. 15 years felt merciful. Both were in federal prison now. I didn't think about them. They weren't worth the space in my head. Instead, Daniel and I started something new, the Eleanor Morgan Fund. Using part of my pension, we helped victims of financial exploitation and domestic abuse, people betrayed by those they trusted. It gave us purpose. It gave Eleanor's name a future. That evening, Daniel set down his beer and watched the water turn gold and pink. I used to think family meant paperwork and vows, he said. Vanessa taught me what it isn't. So what is it? I asked. He smiled softly. It's showing up, not giving up, trusting your gut when it sounds crazy. He looked at me. You're what family means. My throat tightened. Your mom would be proud. I know, he said. She's watching. We sat in silence as the skyline glowed. For the first time in years, I felt peace. Looking back now, I realize God puts certain instincts in our hearts for a reason. When that phone call came at 3:45 in the morning, something inside me whispered, this isn't right. I could have ignored it. I could have boarded that plane to Maui and walked straight into Vanessa's trap. But God gave me 35 years as a detective, not just to solve crimes, but to recognize evil when it's disguised as grief. My advice, don't be like I almost was. Don't ignore that voice in your gut when someone you love is in danger. Don't let politeness or doubt silence your instincts. God doesn't give us those warnings by accident. He's watching over the people we love. And sometimes he speaks through that uneasy feeling you can't explain. The lesson I learned, the one I share in all the stories on this channel now, is this. Family isn't about blood or marriage certificates. It's about who shows up when it matters. It's about trusting God's guidance even when the path seems crazy. Daniel is alive today because I chose to listen to God, to my instincts, to that father's heart that wouldn't let me believe my son was gone. If this story touched you, please leave a comment below sharing your thoughts. Hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who needs to hear these stories on this channel about real courage and real faith. That's what these stories are all about, passing down wisdom that might save a life. Thank you so much for sticking with me until the end. And a quick disclaimer, the next story contains some fictional elements created for educational purposes. If that's not for you, feel free to explore other content that suits you better. God bless you all.